Hey, good morning. This is Urshel Metcalf. I'm absolutely pumped about today's conversation. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right off the bat, if you're already listening, you're already tuned on, you need to go ahead and like this video. You need to share the live feed, start a watch party. I've got some great guests on the conversation today. I'm going to introduce you to all of them, and we are going to have a great conversation. I told you this year, we're going to be bringing the absolute best content, and we're going to be having the conversations that need to be had. And some of those are difficult conversations. Some of those are challenging conversations. But I promise you that every single one of them are necessary conversations that we need to move ourselves, our communities, and our country forward. And so we're not going to be afraid to tackle some of these tough subjects. And today, we're going to bring backstage, we've got three guests that I want to introduce you to. One of them you already know. All three of them you should know because each one of them could change your life if you just got to know them a little bit better. So, hey, everybody, welcome onto the Urshel Speaks platform. We've got Kurt, the Invigorator Francis, coming out of San Diego, California. Some of you have already met him and you already know him. And you know that when he opens his mouth, all he does is breathe fire and life. He's one of my best friends on the planet. And as we often share, and we've been sharing for a long time, on today's panel, he's the only true African-American. And we'll explain that a little bit later. Also, we've got Jenna Apgar. And again, she's someone that you need to know. You'll learn a little bit about. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do as well, so you get to know them. And she's the one that I've known the least, but I tell you what, we have engaging conversations. She tells me I'm wrong all the time, and I enjoy that. And usually when she says it, you know, she's kind of right. And so I really am excited to have her on the conversation. And then my good friend, we've spent more than a few minutes sharing a bar stool together in a variety of places. And now he's living out in Los Angeles on his way back to Texas. And so there's my good friend, Rob Holmes of MI33, General of Warfare Marketing. So Kurt, take 30 seconds, tell everybody how awesome you are.
Urshel. Love you, my friend. Love you. Yes, you're one of my closest friends for 20 years. And you mean everything to me. And I'll tell you what now, you have challenged me so many times in the 20 years. So I'm as privileged to be here. Invigorator, transvigorator, that's what I'm known as, to invigorate people. Chief Invigorator, that's what I call myself.
Yeah.
Joining companies, what position can we give you or whatever? No, my job is to invigorate people to do the right thing at the right time.
Awesome. I love it. Right thing at the right time. We've always been connecting on those things. And I'm going to hit that a little bit today. Jenna of Warfare Marketing, tell the people who you are and why you're awesome.
I'm a digital marketing strategist here in the Dallas area, ex-military and ex-interior designer, 180 out of blood and guts.
Yeah, she's military intelligence. So no longer in the military, but definitely still on the intelligence side. So don't mess around.
That's an oxymoron, man.
And then that's a great segue into my good friend, Rob Holmes. Rob, out of Los Angeles, on his way back to Dallas. Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I'm a second-generation private investigator, originally from New Jersey. When I'm not solving crimes, I'm out trying to solve the world's problems with other big brains like Urshel.
Exactly, and that's what we've spent most of our time doing. So let's jump right into it. I've already had some pre-conversations and some comments coming in last night. So here's what I want to talk about today. You know, yesterday we celebrated the our national recognition of a great American, Martin Luther King Jr. And so yesterday, as I was listening and hearing and seeing things, I started thinking about the iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. And you know, I don't even think that, probably in my opinion, having read so many of his things, I don't think that necessarily is his best speech of all time, or it consists of the greatest things that he's ever said, but it's one that is embedded in the fabric. I don't even think of our nation. I think that is a speech that has impacted the world, and that it should be studied more than it is. It should be celebrated more than it is. But here's what I wanted to do today. I wanted to examine it, and I wanted to use it as a way to kind of give a report card from the different perspectives that we have, and say, okay, let's take a few pieces out of this, and let's see how far we come, or where we've measured up, and how, how that feels, and what we think about it, from the different viewpoints that we have. And we have some diverse viewpoints here. And so, and then Jenna, don't let me forget to talk about, Jenna put a post on Facebook and I shared it. And don't let me forget, at least halfway through, we need to jump into that. But I will go through, if you go to first quote that I put up there. And what I want to do is just put these up here and read them. I listened to the speech and read it again last night. And I sat in my chair, and some of the things hit me so hard as I was reading it. And, I'm going to be 51 here in just a few minutes, really. And it hit me so hard. I sat in my chair and I started crying like a freaking baby, right? Because of the power of what was being said. So Mark, let's jump into that first one. And listen, this conversation is not for the faint of heart. You might get a little bit upset. And if you do, good, it's working. It's doing exactly what it needs to do, because that's the only thing that keeps us moving forward and making change. So here's this first one. One of the things that he said in this speech is, there is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or take a tranquilizing drug of gradualism. And when I read that part of the quote, and when I listened to it last night, I thought about how many conversations, and obviously I'm coming at this conversation from, a man who was born in 1970, who has brown skin and who has born in Texas, lived in the hill country, lived in challenging racial context, and spent time in the military. And one of the things that I've heard, and this is what I'd want your opinions, and just jump in. One of the things that I've heard so many times as it pertains to this concept of people maybe being dissatisfied about where we are. And let me make something clear before I have to, verbally pimp slap somebody. And, if you get crazy in the comments, let me make something very clear. You can love your country. You can passionately love your country and point out the warts and the things that need to be changed. You can be excited about being an American and say, but we still have room for growth. So as we have this conversation, don't for a second think that I or anybody on this panel is a malcontent, but we want to talk about where we are and have a real conversation about it. So just fair warning, because, we will come get you if you get a little crazy in the comments. But the thing that I've heard the most in regards to this type of statement is, well, look how far we've come. Look at how much better it is today than it was, 58 years ago when this speech was given, than it was 10 years or 15 years before that. And that's true. But as we look at this statement, guys, what do you think about this? When he said there's no time for this, we don't have the luxury of having a cooling off period or settling into this, slow, easy, baby step sort of mentality when it comes to equity and civil rights and civil justice. What are your thoughts on this particular quote?
Well, for me, this particular quote is really important because, for the audience, this speech was given on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial 100 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. So, and in the speech, he's talking about, they signed our founding fathers signed a promissory note, and we're here to cash the check. Basically, that's what he said. And this speech is one of his early ones. So he's basically saying, look, you guys, we're here to cash a check, basically. And the leaders at the time were like, okay, these are just a bunch of angry black people. Let's just let them cool off. That give them what they want and let them cool off. And that's why I think this is so important, because, like Urshel said, 58 years later, And, we're still talking about, all this uprest, and people are like, just let them cool off. They're just blowing off steam.
Yeah.
And I think it's not the way to look at things. And I think especially Urshel bringing this up as the first quote is really important, because I think that's what people have been doing for the last 58 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is, this sense of comfort because, again, I can say, even though I face challenges, I've been able to do some things and have some success and have some fun in life and, and go to the grocery store and, and sit at the counter. So it's easy to say, well, you know what, we really don't have to really be intense about, fighting and pushing for change and development now. And I think that when we think about this statement, we can kind of look around the whole spectrum of people and say, where are you on this particular topic? Are you satisfied with where things are? Jenna, Kurt, you got a comment about
I
this
do.
topic?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people tend to not like change. So the concept of gradualism is nice for us because we want to change in small increments. We want to move forward in tiny little bits. And that's great when you're the one doing all right. When you're not the one, when you're the one on the other side of that, when you're the one getting shot, or you're the one who has to lie about their name on a tried on a job application because your name is too Black or too Indian or too Hispanic, that gradualism doesn't work for you.
Right.
You're the one suffering the consequences while everybody else is staying comfortable in their slow change. So I don't think, it's a very powerful quote, but on the other side, I try to see both sides because I know how much people dislike change in their own home, in their own country, in every aspect. But there's definitely always a group, whatever that change is that needs to be made, that they can't afford to be gradual about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kurt, I think you were about to say something. Let it rip.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Ladies first, Always. Hey, I'll tell you what now. What we tolerate, we will never change. And what we tolerate will never change. And so many of these kind of things, people just tolerate things. They may know it's wrong, but they tolerate it. And I've seen that so many times. And especially with gradualization, is just the process of toleration. People just want to tolerate things. And say, it's okay. Let's not create conflict. Let's just sit back. Let's sleeping dogs lie. No. Sometimes that dog needs to get up because that dog's got an overdose of damn treats. No.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that dog out. We need to let the sleeping dog lie. And sometimes that's the worst thing. And I love the words luxury. When he uses the word luxury of cooling off, luxury is about comfort. Luxury is about, let's just relax. That luxury is not about how much money or abundance you've got. Luxury is about comfort zone. That's what it's about. And people love to stay in the comfort zone. And when you get a culture and a community and big groups just living in the comfort zone and things never change. And I think Rob was talking about, blowing off steam, just, let them blow off steam. Hey, a train that has got coal in it doesn't move if there's no steam coming out of it. And sometimes to get that train moving, you need to get some steam coming out. And those trains are not going to move without steam coming out. I can tell you that right now. You need to get some steam coming out. And people are fearful of steam coming out because they don't know how to control it, or they didn't plan, how to channel the steam. A train that steam is channeled in a certain direction to move that thing. And the heavy iron horse is heavy. And you've got to channel the direction of that steam. And that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with the steam. The question is, are we channeling the direction of it? And that's when great leadership comes in. And I like the word tranquilization, or what is the exact word? It's like taking a drug. It's like taking a pill. Let's get rid of the pain. Let's just have another pill. Let's just quiet everybody. Let's just have another pill. Let's get rid of. But if your body's got pain, it's because something's wrong with it.
That's right.
Let's take another pill. Let's tranquilize it with luxury, comfort zone. Come on. Who wrote his speeches? He did. I'm sure he didn't have 25 speechwriters, but this he was speaking so passionately because he understood the community of. It's the same thing with Nelson Mandela. You know, the two of them were so similar in so many ways. And you know, Urshel, I've been to Nelson Mandela's cell in Robben Island twice in my life, and it's always a very emotional for me because, you know, like the South African government, they gave him an opportunity to get out of prison. And he said, no, you think I'm in prison here for me? You think my freedom is just for me? No, there are 14 million people, including white people, that need me to stand up and fight. I don't want to get out of prison. You want me to do a deal with you and get out of prison? And he was the same thing. He wasn't yet to come and deal. Maybe, I mean, he was in he was in the White House, right? He met with he was the president at that time. I'm forgetting now. But you know, I think there was no tranquilizer. There was no. He didn't see that. He didn't see that. He said that he thought the only luxury that would be is when people actually gave up their hardcore passion and bring about freedom for all people.
Wow. I told you this is going to be a hard-hitting discussion. Now, just in case anybody's confused, I probably should have mentioned this. I know you listen to Kurt, and you probably think he's from South Texas because of his accent. But Kurt, just let everybody know exactly where you were born and raised before you chose to become an American citizen. So
I'm in South Africa for 33 years before moving to this great nation. And our family's there, either 4 or 5 generations, either from Germany, England, or Dutch, Holland. And so I've called myself an African American without a tan. In fact, my car license plate is A1. You know, African American without a tan. And I regard myself as an African American without a tan. And there are people that don't like it when I say that, and that's their problem, not mine. Because we love to label a person because how they look or how they sound, or as Jenna was saying, you know, if you've got a name, you go, oh my gosh, you must be Latino. Or you got a name, oh, let me identify, let me put a label on you, let me put you in a box, quickly, hurry up, let's put you in a box. Oh, you look like that, oh, you're Asian, or let me put you in a box. So if I mock the box thing. That's why I call myself an African American without tan, just to irritate some people.
Man,
that's not the purpose, actually. The purpose is
don't let me forget that hashtag.
Hey, I'm from Jersey. I like irritating people by nature. So
awesome, I love it. Awesome. Hey, Mark, let's move to the next screen. And this one, you guys, you might have to help me through this one. This one is really important to me and really powerful. I just messed up mine. Dang it. Let me go back here. Yeah. To lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. And I included a couple of pictures on this one, and I'm gonna take a minute here and explain. I think the one on the right, as you look at the screen, most of us are probably familiar with that. I believe this one was in London, and it was in a Black Lives Matter protest. And the non-melanated gentleman had been, I think he'd been hit in the head with a rock. And I mean, he was in, kind of a world of hurt. And then one of the gentlemen that was a part of Black Lives Matter was seen. He picked him up and carried him to safety and started treating him. And this is one of those moments that so many things were spoken in this act. So many things were seen because, here it is, there's a person, and this is, I think this is what really rings true. Here's a person that's protesting because of the injustices that are being seen and felt. And he shows that he's not a hypocrite in such a magnificent way, because the minute someone else is injured and hurting, he stops his protest to help the person who needs help, to give him what he needs in that moment. And I think that when you look at the pictures and the expressions on his face, you watch the video, you can see that his heart was about concern for this person as an individual. And I can think from some of the things that my parents taught me, he's not after this man or this group of people. He's fighting for justice, and just the look on his face rings right to my heart. And the only picture that I could think of that is more powerful is Mark, if you could zoom in on the other one, this beautiful young lady here from Plano, Texas. This is, extremely personal for me. This young lady, her name is Piper Foreman, and there was a Black Lives Matter protest here in Plano, and so I've known this young lady for a long time, and so I had heard that there was going to be a rally. And but I didn't get much information. I didn't go. I wasn't planning on going, and then I got a FaceTime from Piper and her mother. And her mother has been one of my dearest friends since high school, and godmother to my son, who may or may not come running in here during this conversation. And Piper called me. I believe Piper's 19 years old now. And she called me on the phone and she said, they call me Lee. Said, Lee, I just want you to know I'm on my way to a march for Black Lives Matter, and I'm marching for Tripp. And Tripp is my son. And so when we talk about brotherhood, and if I'm gonna, put us on the scorecard, these are things that give me, the hope of knowing it's not just these old guys we see in Washington who are performing for re-election. It's not just the stuff that we're fed on the news, but, we have real live people, real live heroes that are walking around every single day. And so when I think about being rescued out of the quicksand, these are the people who are the heroes and who are bringing the rescue. So I'm going to need you guys to jump in here and help me out so I can get my crap together and keep up with this show. But any thoughts about this particular quote or any other perspectives on especially the photos there?
Yeah, I think the initial photo, both photos, but also the quote. And I think it's really cool. I commend you for putting these together because, the theme that I got from his "I Have a Dream" speech is that we're in this together.
Yeah,
there was no us and them. It was us.
Yeah,
and I took a couple notes. He says that their destiny, as far as the white people or the people in power, their destiny is tied up with our destiny.
Yeah.
And it's about rising up together, holding hands, so I think it's really important that's, people were like, I'm just like, he says, the dream was joining hands with everyone. That's what it was about, and I think that's really important. I think that, your friend, in Plano, it's really important that people are like that here in Venice Beach. My closest friend out here, he's Black, and he texts me sometimes when he sees some of this stuff on the news. And after George Floyd, I guess it was Juneteenth, just this year, he's like, "Hey, you want to come out and there's a demonstration?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's go." And we went out, and it was in kind of like a very, kind of hippie, or yuppie kind of neighborhood. And we went there. There were refreshments, and there was a bus with a basketball hoop on it and everything. It was music playing, and basically it was a bunch of people that got together. It was probably about 50 to 100 people got together to kneel for 8 minutes and 47 seconds, or the length of the George Floyd moment. And we all knelt. And I'll tell you, I mean, Venice is 80% white. So it was a lot of white folks, and we were all just kneeling. And man, let me tell you, what I learned from that moment or that evening is that it's really hard to kneel for that long.
Mm.
You know,
Wow.
it's really hard just to kneel on nothing, you know, for that long. But yeah. So I think I think that the whole idea of brotherhood is really, really important.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm adding something right now, just based on what you said. I've said for a long time that our nation, on the right coast, we have the Statue of Liberty, and on the left coast, we need to have a Statue of Responsibility, because you can't have one without the other. And what you just said has made me add something to that. We have our Declaration of Independence, and we know what that means. What we need is a declaration of interdependence that emphatically declares how much we need each other if we will ever fulfill our potential on this planet. So thanks for helping me with that. Kurt, Jenna, anything?
Man, y'all see all brotherhood. I see that top line a little bit more heavy. This is the black smudge on our reputation. When we go out into the world, we speak of, everyone needs to have democracy. You should be more like America's exceptionalism. We're great. You're not. You're the screw up. We're industrialized and moving forward. This is the little thing that we've buried, right? And I know Kurt would understand that in South Africa. That's been a big issue over there a little bit. But we bury this issue. And MLK had another quote, and a friend of mine reminded me of it yesterday. That picture speaks volumes of the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenges and controversy. The man was marching because he was in pain. He was probably extremely angry. He's youthful. He's seen where his parents were, where his grandparents were, and how much they fought the battle, and how much further there is to go. And yet when someone else was hurting, he picked the guy up and he takes care of them, right?
Yeah.
So there are people out there that are doing things even when they're hurting and when they're not. And to speak to the protesters in Plano, and that'll be mine, where I don't necessarily, I don't want to say agree or disagree. When you're going out there to protest, what are you accomplishing? Why are you in Plano? Why aren't you on the steps in Austin where the decision makers are? Why aren't you making them feel uncomfortable? Why aren't you being a presence to them? So to be uncomfortable when you're comfortable, it's easy to stand around in Plano and go, we're going to Plano march. We're going to march for our friends. Okay, accomplish what? Whose eyeballs are on you? You're in Plano. No one. Go downtown. Go to the big one in Dallas and be, add to the numbers there and be in front of someone who can make a decision on more of a county level or a newsworthy level. The news stations aren't going to Plano except for a clip, right? For the local stations. Go to Austin, be uncomfortable. The man in the picture on the right, he's uncomfortable and doing something that makes him even further uncomfortable to solve an immediate acute issue. To march in Plano to me is go to a bigger one. Be a little uncomfortable and go somewhere that matters.
Yeah. Oh, that is really good. That's really good. All the stuff good. It's just soaking in everything everybody's saying. The solid rock of brotherhood. And the worst thing is for somebody. Let's say when Urshel was sharing about his son, and we always said, "Oh, don't cry, don't cry." When I shared some stuff with people, my family would say, "Oh, don't cry about it, Or I'll never forget, I was speaking at an event, and this woman just burst out in tears, and everybody went to her and took her, tissues and things like that, and hugged her. I said, "Stop hugging her. Don't give her a tissue. Stop it." And I'm like, "What is it?" No, let her express her pain. Don't try and stop it. And we always try and stop. We try and stop it. And when he says, the solid rock of brotherhood, when we are true to other people and see them as our brothers and sisters, is that we've got to let them express the pain the minute you stop the expression, the healing does not happen. And we need to create an environment that people can express their pain. We always try and cover it up because we want to get to comfort again. We want to get that luxury again. We want to, stop that. And we've got to let people go to the steps in Austin, as Jenna was saying, and express their pain and not cover it up and not say, no, let me hug you. It's okay. It's okay. No, it's not okay. It's not okay. Let people share. And of course, protest, our country's got great laws and regulations of protest, and we've got to encourage it. It's just got to be channeled, and there needs to be responsibility. I love what Urshel says. When we try to let people express themselves, there needs to be responsibility in leadership of letting people express themselves. But we need so much more of that. And the thing is that there's never going to be a day where we're going to be completely free of this. That's never going to happen. This that we're in is going to be continually fought again and again and again for generations, because I believe it's the deepest spirit thing, and the reason, South Africa, the reason why white South Africans pushed down black people is because they were outnumbered and they were so insecure. And whenever you're insecure, you push down, you try and eliminate, you push down. And the harder you push shows me the level of insecurity one has. And the reason why we put things on other people is because we are so insecure ourselves. And where leadership is insecure, that's when you get the pushing down of people. And it's all about insecurity. And that's where fear comes and everything like that.
Hey, Kurt, I'd love to, comment on one of the things you said. I think it's the most powerful thing that was said so far today is that four-letter word, pain. I think it's really important. Being a white guy, I have a lot of black friends, and I'm a conservative, and I look at numbers, and I watch conservative news, and they're like, well, statistically, black men aren't being hunted by the police, or statistically this, or statistically that. But you can argue from a conservative point of view, from a statistical point of view, you can argue whatever you want. But when something like that happens, a Breonna Taylor or a George Floyd or something like that, you have a group of fellow Americans that are in pain. And I'll tell you right now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the numbers are, what the stats are, or what the probabilities are. Is it my brother's in pain? He's hurting right now. What am I going to do? And that's where you really need to step in. We all need to step in and say, okay, well, he's in pain. They're in pain. And it's our duty to step in and let them express themselves. Like I said, it's very powerful what you said, Kurt.
Yeah, and the only thing, the thing that I want to add to that is that, when I see someone crying, and I say, I pat them on the back and I say, there, like Kurt was saying, or don't cry or don't cry. That's about me. That's because them crying is making me uncomfortable. And I want to rush in and create a false comfort, not deal with their pain, not be concerned about exactly what you're saying. Why are you hurting? Why does this feel this way to you? I mean, listen, there was a news report, something happened. I was in a drive-through picking up some food. I had to pull out of the drive-through because it hurt me what I was hearing. And if I delegitimize your pain or don't accept it as real pain, and then the best thing you can do, I mean, I don't know how many people in the room have ever been married. The best thing I can do when my wife is in pain is explain to her, give her a good man speech on why she shouldn't be crying. That's always effective.
Well, we want to fix things, right? We always want to fix things. Yeah. But fixing things, to Kurt's point, fixing things doesn't mean stop the expression. That's what I think when people, when you talk about protests and sometimes it turned into riots, and we're not justifying looting or any of those things, but if you don't understand where this is coming from, why is this pain here? Why is this
outrage here. And if we want to dismiss it, like you said, Rob, because we can go dig up some statistics but when the truth is, I look at numbers, I do a lot of reading, but we all know that 93.2% of statistics are made up off the top of your head at the moment that you give them, like the one I just gave you. And so we know that's a reality. So I think that's really good. And this conversation is going to last about 14 hours. But let me see. This is a good point, Jenna. Let's talk about what you posted on Facebook yesterday, and maybe take a few seconds. Tell us why you posted that, and then what you said, and then there were some interesting responses as well. Oh, I can't hear you, Jenna.
Boom. I didn't say anything that I thought was particularly prophetic. So if anybody's looking for like the magic in the words, but sometimes I think the greatest thing you can say is just to ask a question. It drives the least level of defensiveness because you're not speaking as an authority or a fake guru. And I don't know if it's because I'm military. My dad was military, my uncle, my grandfather, my other grandfather. It's a little deep, right? Some would say, oh, well, you're an Aries. I even had one client, you're a double Aries. I tend to be that person that runs into the burning house, right? When everything's going wrong, I tend to be that one person that jumps over and does something really stupid but necessary. My daughter's carried this over. I got the Facebook memory this morning that I think it was like 5 years ago. She was sitting in class and the kid in front of her started having a seizure, and she grabbed him and was just holding him. She doesn't know how to handle a seizure. He's biting his tongue. Blood is coming out like foam from the spit and the blood. And
Wow.
when she got up, this kid in class says, "Ew, you got blood on your shirt." It's the point. This kid is shaking. He's having a terrible medical emergency, and you're worried about blood on her shirt. I'll buy her a new shirt. She can get one from the principal's office, right? This is not a big deal. How about the kid who's bleeding, right? We'd all like to think that we're the ones that would rush in when something's wrong. Then when there's an emergency, the guy that was carrying the other guy in the protest there, that we would be that person. And I just don't believe that. I've all too many times seen where there's an issue and everyone's looking at me like, why are you doing that? That's not your business to do. And I'm just staring at them like, well, if not me, who? Because everyone else is running that way and screaming. So if there's a problem, who else is going to fix it? I'm acknowledging the problem. Y'all are all running away. I don't know what to tell you. And I've been married before, and my ex got mad at me for that concept. He's like, you've got kids, you can't do that. But everyone's posting on MLK Day, and they're like, if I had a dream, I had a dream. And all these quotes from him, they're always the happy ones. They're never the harsh ones.
Yeah.
As if they're carrying some kind of torch.
Yeah.
As if they're accomplishing something by being a Facebook warrior. And I'm all for building awareness. I'm in social media and digital marketing. That's part of the game too. But someone's actually got to carry the actual torch. Someone's got to be close to the flame. Somebody's got to run a little risk. And I know a lot of these people. I know how much of a keyboard warrior they are and how much their voice stops right there behind the comfort and the luxury of their own home. And that's it. And so my question was really simple. How many of you would step into his shoes, given that you know the outcome of what it cost him, his life? And I just don't think, and not just about racial injustice, about anything, about any issue. I'm a woman. I just watched 1 million jobs be lost in the U.S., specifically more so than men, because our kids are at home.
Right.
How many issues would you be willing to sacrifice everything for? We had the kneeling issue. And my dad was one of the people who was extremely upset about Kaepernick and turning his ESPN to a political station. He works in politics. He's in NATO. He runs a global flight training operation. And I can respect that. He just wants his sports. I get that. He wants that little luxury. And this guy is kneeling. And I can respect Nike's way of handling it more than anybody else's, because they had angry Black Americans on one side, and they had angry veterans, or at least people proclaiming to speak on veterans' behalfs. And
Right.
they made a comment, believe in something so much, and I'm butchering this quote, that you would give everything for it. And every athlete, every Black American going through the pain right now, and every veteran knows what that means. That's a very veteran thing, to be willing to sign up and give up your life for something you believe in. And I just don't think all these keyboard warriors do that.
You know what lost a lot of people with Kaepernick was while he was doing that, he was wearing socks that portrayed cops as pigs. Yeah. And that was the one thing, because you'll hear, I don't care if it's Bill O'Reilly or any of these people, they'll always go back to that. And
really, I've never heard it, not once.
Yeah. When he was kneeling,
conservative friends.
Yeah, check it out. When he was kneeling, he had these socks, and even during practice and stuff, he wore these socks that had little cops as pigs, and that was what set everyone off. It's not. Yeah, and
I disagree.
Huh?
I disagree on that one.
No, I know, because I know people who still say that that's their reason for being angry at him to this day.
I've never heard. You are the first person I've ever heard that from, and I have an incredibly conservative set of friends. Yeah, I've never once heard that. It's always been the kneeling. Kneeling was in the news.
Well,
kneeling was in the conversation.
Yeah, but it was the kneeling with those socks that set everyone off. Yeah.
No, it was the kneeling. And I'm gonna go with the kneeling.
Yeah, and right, and I know that to be a fact, and I've seen the picture with the socks, and I think even there was an interview where he addressed that. But even in that, here's how I feel about that, and I wish he hadn't done that, because it just made it easier to change the narrative. My point. Yeah, that was the conversation, because what he didn't have was socks that portrayed veterans as baby killers, right? Yep. Although people in our good, God-fearing people in our nation have called veterans baby killers, and so, from my perspective, there was always a desire to change the conversation from what it really was about, because nobody who here's here's why, if you saw the Facebook post that I had last week after the situation at the Capitol, so many people wanted to come in and change the conversation, and I was emphatic that we're going to have one conversation at a time. I'm happy to join in any other conversations and discuss those on the merits of the facts. Mm-hmm. But there was always an initiative, in my opinion, with the Kaepernick, to change the conversation from the main conversation. Nobody, from that same perspective, no one wanted to say that it was a well-known veteran and athlete who told him to kneel during the national anthem. Because initially he sat, and he said kneeling is a sign of respect and honor. Think about the other situations where we kneel. And so this veteran, who is a high-profile individual and took some heat as a result of it, is the one that convinced him, to kneel during the national anthem. And so I would be happy to, tell Mr. Kaepernick, if I had the position to chastise him, you should not have worn those socks, because you gave people an opportunity that they didn't need. They were going to do it anyway, but you gave them an in route to try to invalidate the whole message because of something else. Now,
he also opened the door. He also opened
and I don't
the
know
door.
Anybody who was claiming Colin Kaepernick as being the spokesperson who does everything right. And I think that was a bad choice and a bad decision. But
was it terrible? Like, if you knew that you were going to be the message, if you knew you were going to be the lightning rod, but like Urshel said, he didn't know he was the lightning rod. He sat down and did a thing. Didn't. But so he wore some socks. But
right.
I had a friend of mine who's deep in Black studies, and we had a statue here in Lee Park before it was changed its name, but it wasn't like the other General Lee statues. It wasn't like manufactured out. This was a stunning gift from President Roosevelt, and it was 3 different men writing. It was just a beautiful statue, and they wanted to lift it. They think they spent over $1 million to take it out. And I'm telling my friends, like, why? Like, stick another name on it. Nobody even needs to know who it was. Like, oh, it's a beautiful statue. Don't take that out of my city. And she just looked at me and she's like, Jenna, if you knew somebody raped your grandmother, would you want that person's face constantly being seen in your city? This is somebody who is taking it very personally that people are dying with the same skin color as him, and he has to be careful, and he has to teach his children how to get pulled over by the cops. You're mad, you're angry, you're not comfortable, and he made a dumb decision. It would have been really nice if he didn't call them pigs, but I mean, I've been in cars, kind of run with some interesting crowds in my day, and they've yelled out of the car window, you know, pigs. Is it respectful? No. Is it perfect? Did it maybe distract from the conversation or give an excuse? But I don't think Kaepernick ever was really prepared to be the lightning rod that he became.
Well,
So
no one
many
ever
people
is.
did more.
No one ever is, which goes back to your point, Jenna, you know, that are you prepared? Because he should have been prepared to, he made a statement. He knew he was going to be, he knew he was going to be seen. He makes $9 million a year. He's not a moron. So he knew he was going to be seen by 20 million people kneeling.
He's a football player who makes $9 million a year. He's not stupid on the field.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
No, I think I'm missing that one, because just because he makes $9 million or another athlete makes $122 million, they're highly intelligent on the field. They'd spank me. I can't even. I'm sure I can run 100 yards.
Well, I'm giving him credit that he's not stupid. But what I'm saying is that he was conscious of the fact that 20 million people were going to see him do that. If it was on a little league field, he wouldn't have. So
he sat and nobody did anything. He kneeled and people lost their minds. So when you're angry, Rob, have you ever said something or done something that you didn't mean?
Yep. And I'm not putting it all on him. What I'm saying now is that what it did was it opened the door for, let me put it this way. I have a niece who is a freshman in college, and in her Instagram feed, in her bio, is the acronym ACAB. Do you know what ACAB means?
Yes, I've had to look it up for my teenager. Movement. Yeah,
all cops are bastards, and the problem that has happened because they weren't chastised by their own community for. You know, when Black Lives Matter started, their first national march, the march that got national attention, the mantra was what was it? Cops are pigs, fry them like bacon. Cops are pigs, fry them like bacon. And that was the first national march. And like I said, it goes back to what you said, because you said, are you prepared? So when you make a move and you know you're going to be on TV, you need to be prepared to lead the movement, you know? And the problem is that, and like I said, I know some cops are bad, but the problem is that they're taking, and King's speech literally was all about holding one another's hand, hold the cop's hand, you know? But the problem is so many national leaders took the police movement and ran with it because, you know, and there are a lot of people there. There's an economist that I follow named Thomas Sowell, and he said back during the civil rights movement, in an interview back in the late 60s, early 70s, he said there are leaders and there are office seekers. And I think sometimes, you know, these organizations are more interested in your money and raising money and building a career off of a cause rather than the cause itself. You know, and I think that's the big snowball. That's the big snowball about us against the police. And I think it was unintended consequence by Kaepernick, but it happened.
How many people need to shoot somebody like you before you're angry at everyone in that organization? You're angry because someone in the organization said something that hurt your feelings. Now imagine if somebody in that organization was shooting your brothers and sisters.
Well, let me tell you something. You know, I grew up in a kind of a redneck area. And we grew up. Yeah, and we grew up, but this was in New Jersey, and it was very.
Oh, this is deep in the heart of Texas with the KKK next door.
Well, no, my grandfather was the head of the KKK, and he was the chief of police, and we were right next to Atlantic City, which is predominantly African American. So one of the things that I always remember, as far as being cognizant of other people and the way you think of other people is that most of my life I was raised to be afraid of black people because when something happened in my town, it was a black person, you know? And well, the thing was, I grew up and I matured and I realized, wait a second, they're afraid of us. You know what I mean? And the thing is that when you live in fear of a group, or you promote, or you portray yourselves as a leader, and if you're the CEO of a nonprofit, you're a leader. You decide to take money to be a leader. You're portraying fear in order to raise money for your organization, spread your cause. But like I said, when you have white 18-year-old kids saying all cops are bastards, you're not leading a movement.
They're 18-year-old kids. They don't know better. They
Yeah,
don't.
and
They have no life experience.
I did when I was 18. When I was 18, I was part of a ministry. You know, I did a whole bunch but I didn't say anybody was bad. I didn't call them names. You know, I think the problem is they're being told to call those names. Huh?
Nobody was shooting people that looked like you. Nobody was vilifying people that looked like you.
But these white kids, this is what I'm saying. These white kids that are saying all cops are bastards, no one's shooting at them either.
They're shooting at their friends, and their friends are in pain. Like I grew up in terrible. Yeah. I remember being 5 years old and correcting the old people in my household that certain words were highly inappropriate, and then being corrected. Oh, it's not just black people. It's anybody who acts like that. Conveniently only black people. And it's still happening today. My boyfriend is Persian, and my mother called and threatened his office 3 different times, to the point I got she has warrants for her arrest at this point for threatening him for being a foreigner and not belonging here. Mm-hmm. So the racism is in my life every single day, and I can see how it hurts those around me. And when it's directly affecting your relationships and it's directly causing tears and upset feelings and painful realities for the people around you, you're going to pick up that stick too. Yeah, at least they're picking up the torch.
Let me interject something here. And Rob, I'd like to get your perspective on this, because as a matter of fact, I think I shared this in a conversation online. Growing up, playing most sports and being an athlete, from time to time, and I may or may not have been the instigator in some of these situations, but from time to time, fights will break out on the basketball court or in a football game. Hockey's different because it's encouraged. But when that happens, there's even a little bit of training that you're giving at a certain point, that when this fight breaks out between, a few players on this team and a few players on that team, but the game has to continue, right? And we don't want everyone, ejected. We don't want, people to get seriously hurt. And so there's a strategy as a team player, as someone that's in the game. There's a strategy to diffuse this. If I'm on the team and my jerseys are yellow and the other team, their jerseys are green, then when I run from the bench into the fray, if I want to diffuse this situation, the most important thing and the best thing that I can do is grab the yellow jerseys who have transgressed and who are in this fight, and to turn my back to the other jerseys, grab the ones that have the same color jerseys and push them back to the place where they're out of the fight. It's my job to get my team to align, to de-escalate. It's my job to get those that see me as an ally, as a teammate, and stop them from fighting. Because if what I do is go grab the person with a different colored jersey to correct them, then the assumption is I'm joining the fray. I'm perpetuating the fight. And so if I'm not willing, and the reason why I'm saying this, because you touched on it, Rob, if people in this camp don't police, the people who should be the most outraged when a cop commits a crime against a woman or a person of color or the people who should be protesting, the people who should be jumping up and down are police officers and their families.
Yep.
They should be the ones saying, when you do that, you're putting my life in danger. You're putting my husband's life in danger by doing what you're doing. The people who, whenever it's someone on whatever team you say you're on, and hopefully that's the American team first in this context, when certain things happen, the Christian church should be the one saying, you know what, you are, you're exiled, you're cut off, whatever. But when we instantly, and here's the problem, when we say, well, I'm on the other team,
right,
and we shift the focus to whatever fault we can find in the person who has a legitimate cry and a legitimate pain, and we say, well, what about this or what about that? Instead of saying, you know what, we need to clean up our situation.
Well, that's
responsibility for our part in this. And we can't look at someone who's victimized and say, but yeah, you screwed up over here. But yeah, because all that does is say, you know what, you don't want to face the reality, and you definitely don't want to face the reality that I face. I don't want any cop to fear for his life because he puts on a uniform and goes to work. I absolutely don't.
Well,
I don't want a 12-year-old boy, Tamir Rice, playing in the park by himself to be shot within seconds of a police car pulling up because he was a 12-year-old kid playing by himself with a toy gun.
Well, Chris Rock said something once, I thought it was really, really profound, where he said that if we had the same standards for cops as we did airline pilots, we'd be a lot better off. I'm paraphrasing. It was actually a very well orchestrated paragraph. But, if we say that, well, only this many innocent people are shot or innocent black folks are shot, if we said only this many airplanes crashed, another thing, to put the counter to my argument with the all cops are bastards thing, which is in response to what you're saying about exacerbating situations, is that I'm very much against, and on my Facebook feed, I'd say probably 1,000 of my friends and followers are cops or cop types, military types, investigators, bail bondsmen, whatever. It's just my industry. And one thing that really, really bothers me is the second that someone dies, an unarmed black person dies, everybody's up with the Blue Lives Matter tag and the Blue Lives Matter logos. And, Jenna, I think you'll agree with me is that, that doing that right after you have 10, 20% of our population is in real serious pain. You're just kind of like sticking your thumb in the sore by saying Blue Lives Matter. And, there was one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter said this too. They said that we're not saying that all lives don't matter. It's just that, if you have a friend with cancer, then you're talking about cancer that day. You're not saying that, well, other, heart disease doesn't matter. You have a cause. And when there is a call for, sympathy or a call for togetherness, especially in King's case, call to hold hands for a cause, let's just get on that cause. You know what I mean? Let's just get on that cause. The countering thing with the Blue Lives Matter, and I hope my cop friends are listening, we love you guys, but the Blue Lives Matter thing, it's usually very inopportune moments.
I agree. I always liked the Marine way of handling it. They handled their own business
in-house.
In-house.
Yeah,
you didn't have to hear about it. It wasn't broadcast. It just happened that evening.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Jenna. I can deny the truth.
Hey, as a female, you talk about a female cause, things would happen. And I knew that I could always go to the shot caller of whatever base I was at for the Marines and be like, and I actually did this. I did it really publicly one time because the Marine gunny wasn't handling things. Basically went up to his face, got 2 inches away from his nose and said, if you don't handle it, I will. Mm-hmm. And I may have said a couple of other things to imply it'll make him look like a female part. But he handled it. And I watched Marines divide into two camps, just like we do now, one defending the girl, one defending the guy. Tore up 4 dorm rooms, but it didn't happen again. So I like the idea of cleaning up your own house, but I'm with you, Rob, there. I see it. If you don't clean up your own house, and that's frustrating.
Yeah. I want to jump on one thing and give us all a final round, and maybe if you want to, a letter grade on how you think we have progressed, because we have made progress. Make no mistake about it. But we still have a long way to go. And having these conversations is a big part of it. So I want to read this last one. Mark, this one is number 5, the 5th one. And then I want to give everyone a chance to, either comment on that or your final comment. And then hopefully we'll continue this conversation and many like it. So here we are. So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. As you look at that statement, and all that it says, and the power of the crafting of the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Kurt, what's your final shot, either in reference to this or the conversation in general?
First, my thing is that this is probably more powerful now than it's been in many, many years, because we still need to believe in the American dream. And we've had some massive speed bumps this last year from, different angles and different thoughts. And we need to get back to believing in the American dream, for all people are created equal. And the thing is not just about changing conversation, like with the socks issue, is that we need to learn how to have a conversation, because our leaders aren't having conversations. And I just love the fact that we can have people with different perspectives, even on today's chat, with different perspectives, and yet still have a conversation. And that's what we need. We need a conversation about this, because it's not the end yet. And we need to teach young people and adults and leaders is how to sit down and talk and express their views, even when their views may not be agreed upon or popular, but to talk about it, just to talk about it. That's what we lack most in our nation. So this slide is powerful for our nation right now. And just my thing of my views on liberal and conservative is very different to most people, and I understand that. My views on liberal and conservative, they're exactly the same thing, because freedom only comes within parameters. You look what happened with Iraq. When we went in there, Iraq was in chaos, and they thought that was freedom. Freedom only comes when you've got parameters, when you've got guidelines of values and character and morals, whatever. And that is conservative. When conservative is when you conserve something. And to be conservative and to have liberty is the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. But we've been lied to, and we put people in two camps. And we force people. But what's happening today, our nation doesn't have. That is, I don't even want to interrupt you. I was so enjoying listening to everything everybody was saying. And I think there's more in common than not.
Yeah. Right.
There's more in common with all of us than
Absolutely.
not. Yeah. And what's happened today, we need to have more of this in our nation.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Right? And to add to Kurt's point, this speech that King gave was all about sitting at the same table and holding hands, and that's all I'm going to say, because spoke plenty this time, but Kurt, it was very profound what you just said.
Yeah.
I like that
Everything
Kurt
Dave
said
was wonderful.
people. If you'll notice in that, I almost to some extent need, it's a powerful speech, but it was a powerful speech of the day. I think today that people of, all different sides of all different teams have, they're giving up on the American dream. And so by not having a clear vision of what that American dream means, I feel like it takes away from the speech. And Kurt put in people, but it says men. And especially when you talk about Black women, I feel like that they've taken the burden even greater. So I hope that people can reestablish the American dream and do it as one people.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I want to thank my computer died, so I switched to my iPad so you get to see my green screen and all that stuff. I think the most important thing, this all starts, it starts with dialogue, but it only ends with action.
Mm-hmm.
It can never, the conversation is so important. And the messaging of this great messenger whose words are, have become immortal. But what they really were is they were marching orders. It was a commentary on the circumstances and a challenge that says we're not going to be satisfied with things the way that they are. They must get better. And that's where, Jenna, your post, that I'm not going to lie, it rocked me. When I read it, I was driving. I shouldn't have been reading Facebook, but it was in the thing. And I was driving and it rocked me because, if you see my taglines anywhere, you'll see this quote that says, the right man at the right time, saying the right words to change the world. And that comes from, Kurt's heard this a long time. I was 5 years old. We had moved to a small hill country town. There's a lot of racial challenges that I faced for the 9 years that I lived there. And but when I was 5 years old, I was watching the documentary that I'm sure we've all seen on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I've seen it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. And I watched it sitting in front of the TV. And what I heard was that quote, the right man at the right time saying the right words can change the world. And I never forgot that from the time that I was 5 years old. And when I was in my late 20s, sitting at home with my children, watching this documentary, and I was looking forward to this part coming up. I didn't remember where it was. And I was looking forward to this part coming up so that I could tell my kids that, the first time I watched this at 5 years old, that statement impacted me and I never forgot it. And we watched the whole thing. Martin Luther King Jr. never says it. The narrator never says it. It's not said throughout the whole thing. And it was at that moment that I realized that dialogue was internal. That was my purpose being born. And that means nothing if I don't take action. It's not enough for me to just say the words, because the words can be a catalyst, but then there has to be the courage to stand and act. And that's why I said no to your post, because if I would do it, then I would be doing something today on that level, or would have been doing something yesterday on that level. And, and I'm not going to say that I don't think I've ever had an impact, or that, I'm not, courageous. But you know what? There's room for improvement. There's room to stand even stronger and not take the easy way out because my life isn't miserable, because, I'm not getting sprayed with water hoses. And my son is not experiencing what I experienced growing up. His life is better, but that's not okay. That's not enough. And here's the thing, and this is, really what I want to say to your point, Jenna, and I think what we all believe is that if by the end of 2021, there is not a shred, there is not one iota of injustice or inequality for Black and brown people in America, if we have totally obliterated it and it's gone, there are still people that I need to be fighting for. Because if I'm only concerned about me, then I'm not really after justice. I'm not really after equality. I'm only concerned about my comfort. I'm only concerned about people who look like me, which is what started this problem in the first place. So we have to care more even about justice than just justice for me. And guys, I love every one of you. And, I knew this was going to be a great conversation. I can't remember the last time I was nervous before doing a show. And today I was, just because I know that this conversation is a needed conversation and there are people that are going to hear it. And we're going to be able to provoke and do some things. And I know every person on this call is all about making a difference. Every one of you, since, I met Jenna, I've known you the least amount of time. And everyone wants to have an impact and make a difference. So I love you guys. Thanks for being on the show. Hey, everybody out there, I told you I needed 1,000 followers on my YouTube channel. I did great. I more than doubled. So I'm at almost 30. So get to work. Go to my YouTube channel and like and subscribe, share, because I got something to say. And it's good stuff. And it's going to be good every single week. So you need to do your part. Go out and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow all of these people. Rob's out there. He's always kicking stuff. Kurt is like nitrous for your life. If you hear him, every time you hear him, your life is going to be lit up. Jenna's going to tell you the truth, and she's going to help you get your message where it needs to go. My name is Urshel. This is Urshel Speaks. We're going to keep having the most impactful conversations in the world every single week. You go out and make it the best day you can make it, because that's your job. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye,
man.
guys.
So